Welcome to the Contrarians. Tonight we have a great topic. This is where we look at an album or a group of albums by an artist, but you only love one of those records. We want to hear from you in the chat. Let's get started. The panel is here. Let's go.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Contrarians. We've got another panel show for you. We've got a small, intimate panel here, but it's a really interesting topic. I remember talking about this with somebody else. It might have been with Pete at one point, but the idea is bands that you only like one album of, and why, and what is the psychology that is causing you to do that? How close are the other albums? Can you get to this place because you have respect for this band? Why is this band a band that you only like one album, and how much do you like that one album? So that's our topic for tonight here on the Contrarians. I will throw it over to the Elder of Rock for his for how many do you guys have first, each of all?
I chose 5. I didn't know for sure.
You have 5, Rich?
I've got about 4.
Okay, Grant?
Well, I'll come up with something. I was going to host, so...
Yeah, okay. Well, I kind of have about 4. Yeah, you think about it, because it's actually a tough question. So why don't we, these shows always don't have to be super long. Why don't we just give us all your examples in one shot kind of thing?
In one shot? Oh, okay.
Elder. Yeah.
All right, so my first one's going to be the Joe Perry Project, the first album. I really love this album, but every album after this, I just really couldn't get into. Its personnel started changing, and that kind of thing. And maybe it was a really high expectation because this is just a great album. I played it a lot when it came out, and but after that, I just really didn't like anything else. It was just seemed to be lacking something to me. Maybe it's because he had rock in the rest of his other titles. I got the rock and rolls again. Once a rocker. I don't know, but anyway, that third
album is a bit tough to take.
Yeah. With Mock Bell or whatever that guy's name was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's a good choice because what happens with that situation is the personnel changes, so you're feeling like it's a different band. So there's a reason it's not all these albums aren't all close together in a grayscale, and because they have so many similarities, we actually have changes in personnel going on. And with the last one, we even get a change in the label as well. And it feels like the whole philosophy of the band changes literally on all 3 of those albums. So that's actually a really good choice. All 3 have a very different personality.
Yeah, they all have different. Yeah, they all were just and I just liked the first one so much that I just really couldn't get into the other 2 for that reason.
Yeah. I do want to go on record to say, though, and people can burn across my yard or burn down my house, but that first Joe Perry Project album's my favorite Aerosmith. I
favorite
love
of all the Aerosmith albums.
But there's
Aerosmith
so much
involved
energy
albums
on it, and Joe guitar
really
playing,
high,
the vocals, the production, it is raw and energetic. It feels, and the recording's good. It feels like you're right there listening to the band.
Yeah,
I love that record. It still stands up.
Definitely,
and of course has a superior version of Let the Music Do the Talking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
all right, Elder, next one.
All right, my next one is another first album from a band. They put this album out. It's a Great White's first album. This was like kind of a hair metal album, but it was almost sounds like a Rat album to me. And everything they put out after this, I really didn't care for because they went into the more bluesy rock kind of thing. But has a great version. I love the version of Substitute they cover on here. There's a song called Stick It on here I love. And so that was the only one I liked by them. Like I said, they got bluesy after that. I just didn't really care for it. But that was like a hair metal LA album that I really liked. So, and after that, I just was kind of disappointed in what they came out with. I wanted them to do more stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a great point too. Same kind of situation. The identity of the band actually changes, right?
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Next. This next one now, I didn't get to participate in one called Guilty Pleasures, so this qualifies as that as well. This is going to be Shania Twain. Come on over. she had 2 albums before this that were more country, and then the albums after this I just didn't really like. But this one I just really liked. Mutt Lange, I love the production on this, really good. I think it's probably maybe his best production that he did to me. I just really like it. But then I get, like I said before this, yeah, and after this, yeah, but just everything on this I just really like. So
Now, is that her biggest album by far?
I think so. I think this, yeah,
think so.
probably. I would think so, yeah, because I don't think Up after this was as big, and anything before this was as big either.
Because I almost think that applies to a theory or a theme about this concept, which is when did you did you participate in the excitement when the person was completely hot or the band was hot? Like were you swept up in the excitement of the band, and then when the band fell down, did you kind of leave the building along with everybody else, sort of thing? And I have a few that I think apply for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I just like I said, the album after that, I just thought it was, I was really hoping for something as good, and it just quite wasn't. So yeah.
Cool.
All right, so the next album, I guess it's gonna be the second album from this band. I didn't like their first one. I didn't like anything else they put out after this, but to me, this hit me. It had a really good sound. It's Limp Bizkit, Significant Other. I think it was produced by Terry Dade, who produced Pantera. It had a really metallic sound on this one. The songs I don't mind on it. I really like break stuff, especially off of this album. But no, I was never really a Limp Bizkit fan. I didn't really like, but I just, I was working CD retail, and you have a lot of things. I think this one actually is a promo. Yeah, you can see it. Maybe it's a promo. It's a clean version too, but but I just put this on. I wasn't expecting to like it, and I did like it. So that's another one. But I just only love that album. So
yeah.
And then this might seem like we're going back to Jamie Laszlo's douche rock show he had a couple weeks ago, but I'm going to say Kid Rock, Devil Without a Cause. I liked this. I enjoyed this. Again, this is one of those ones that came through when I was working CD retail. Didn't know what to expect when I put it on. I put it on, and I kind of liked it. It was, groovy. It was before everybody got burnt out on it. So, and then I actually got to see him on this tour at House of Blues here in Orlando, and he put on a really good show. I really enjoyed it. He, played a lot of instruments. He did a lot of different things. He did I think ironically, he did a Grand Funk song actually, and some other things.
Elder, here's a deep thought about this. So you picked Kid Rock and you picked Limp Bizkit. I wonder if with some that might fit for some people in this category, it's like one is all you need.
Yeah, that's what I kind of think too.
But you need one. I mean, the personality is there, and you love the idea of the band and the whole concept and the whole philosophy of the band. You need one in your life, one full album, but one maybe is all you need, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what I kind of feel. Yeah, it's like, because why do I need anything else? I think I've heard the best of what the band to me has to offer.
Yeah,
and so even though I heard some of their other stuff, I just didn't feel like I needed to get it, and own it. So
yeah, cool. All right, is that all of yours?
Yes, I believe that is all of them.
Okay, wicked. Let's move over to Rich, because Grant's going to definitely need some time to think here, because it is a tough question, like I say. Yeah. All right, Rich, let her rip.
So I'm going to start off with my the two bands that I thought of when I first heard about this topic, and the first one is Stackeridge. And it's an album called Extravaganza, and I've heard their other stuff after I bought this, and I don't like it nearly as much. A lot of it, some funny song titles, funny lyrics, but the music never really. It was maybe a little bit too folky, a little bit too poppy for me, and their lineup was always changing. This lineup. I think the U.S. version is the one that I like, which is the one that I have on vinyl, and the US version isn't available on CD, which I think is a shame because I think it's the better album. But I love this album. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the band, but yeah, it's really tough to describe their music. They have 3 instrumentals on here: Rufus T. Firefly, Pocket Billiards, and Who's Up There with Bill Stokes. And it's kind of like Sesame Street jazz music, really unusual, fun stuff. And then they have 3 songs sung by their flute player, Mutter Slater. One called The Volunteer, and the other one called Happy in the Lord, and the other one called Do the Stanley. And I think those are great songs. And Mutter Slater, to me, sounded like Ringo Starr if he had had classical vocal training. Just a much better version. And looking at the pictures of the guys inside, I always thought the guy, Andy Davis, he's the one with the hat and the glasses. I thought he was the one that sang those songs. And he looks a little bit like John Lennon.
Looks like John Bonham to me.
Yeah. But yeah, I think this is a great album. And I've played The Volunteer and Happy in the Lord on my radio show quite a bit. So that's my number 1 choice. My second is Procol Harum, and the album is Home. I think almost all their other albums on vinyl, and this to me is the one that I go back to the most. It's the only album of theirs that I know every song for, and I like the combination of, like, they've got this humorous cover, which is kind of like a variation on Chutes and Ladders, and they got this photo inside of the band kind of goofing around, and but the music on it it's like it's like the darkest album that they ever did. Like, a lot of songs on it deal with death, like Dead Man's Dream, which is my personal favorite from the album. This really creepy song in which this guy has a nightmare, and he's going into this graveyard, and the corpses start rising and they're rotting, and it's just a really cool, creepy song. I've always played it on my Halloween show. And then there's About to Die, which is written by Robin Trower, and that's another song that has to do with death. And then there's an upbeat song called Still There'll Be More, which has the music is upbeat, but it's really kind of a nasty, vicious song. And the refrain goes, "I'll blacken your Christmas and piss on your door. You'll cry out for mercy. Still there'll be more." And
Those almost sound like Merciful Fate lyrics.
yeah, and then the opening track, Whiskey Train, that's written by Robin Trower. He did the music for it, and that sounds like almost nothing on the rest of the album. It's a really cool hard rock song. It's probably the most dominant his guitar has ever been on any Procol Harum album. And in side 2, it ends off, I think, with 2 really great songs. One is Wailing Stories, which is like 7.5 minutes and kind of like an epic song, and then it ends off with this great little catchy tune called Your Own Choice that ends off with a harmonica solo. And I just think it's what I like about the album is I feel like every song has its own unique personality, and I like the fact that there's so many lyrics on it that deal with death, and even some of the happier songs have dark themes going through them. So yeah, I love that album. I like some of their other stuff, but not as much. Home is the album that I just keep going back to the most. My third is going to be Mogwai. This is kind of like, I think they came out in like the late 90s. And the album I'm referring to is Happy Songs for Happy People. And I remember hearing this at an internet cafe sometime in the early 2000s. And they were playing the first song off it called Hunted by a Freak. And I was really, really kind of blown away by that song. So I went out and bought the album. And it's the album, it's all instrumentals, kind of like electronic ambient rock, ambient textures with regular rock drumming. And I remember thinking, well, I got to get the rest of the albums by this group. And I was disappointed when I found out that it's really more of the same. And I just think what they did on this album, Happy Songs for Happy People, I don't think they did it as good on any of their other albums. And I just thought the other albums just sounded too much like it, just like lesser versions of it. But I love this record, especially that first song, "Hunted by a Freak," which I think is terrific. Fourth one, this isn't exactly a band, but it's an artist, and I'm going to go with Roger Glover, Elements. His first album was not really a solo album. It was like the Butterfly Ball or something, and he had a whole bunch of guest vocalists on it, like Ronnie Dio and Dave Coverdale and Glenn Hughes. And this album, Elements, came out in 1978, right before he rejoined Rainbow. And it's kind of a concept album based around a poem that Roger Glover wrote, and he wrote music to interpret it. And it's kind of like orchestral rock, movie soundtrack stuff. And I think it's a great album. And it's really hard to find on CD. And it's more available on vinyl than it is on CD form. And it is not available on iTunes or any downloadable music service, which I think is a shame, because I just think it's the way he incorporates the orchestra with regular instruments, I think is done really, really well. And his other stuff, I think that he put out an album in 1984 called The Mask, in which he does the singing, and it's kind of reggae and pop, and I didn't really like that one very much. But Elements, I think, is a great album. And my last one is Blood Incantation. This was a death metal group, and the album, this one is called Time Wave Zero, and they decided to go electronic ambient on it, and it only consists of 2 songs. One of them's 21 minutes long, and the other one's like 19 minutes long, and it's just relaxing electronic ambient music. And I don't think they've put out an album since. Maybe their fans were too mad at them for doing that, but I don't care for their regular albums that much, because I'm not really into death metal. But this one I think is really good, and it's one of my favorite electronic ambient albums that's come out in the last 5 years. So those are my choices.
Nice.
Wow.
Good job, Rich. Excellent.
Good.
Excellent. All right, Grant, what do you got?
Well, I've been able to scrape some things together. Now, basically, what I'm looking at this, I have all these CDs or all these albums or whatever, but I'm looking at it and going, you know what? When I review this, there's only like one album of this bunch that I like of this mess. Now, this probably be controversial, but I don't know. I'm being honest. And my first choice, I'm going to go with Dire Straits. I think that the first album is absolutely brilliant. The songwriting's great. You've got the strat interplay between David Knopfler and Mark Knopfler. There's something about the tonality, and they only really had that captured that on the first record. And the recording's really great, and it's just very guitars, bass, and drums and vocals. Very simple. As they kept going, they got a little bit more out there, not in a avant-garde or a creative sense, but I don't know if you want to say it's more commercial, but I don't think Communicate was all that hot, and I don't think Making Movies was all that hot. I mean, their claim to fame is probably Brothers in Arms, but I never play it. I play the first album quite a bit, though, still. And the other ones I just don't have any interest in.
Yeah,
I might be completely crazy, but I think the first album's wonderful.
My favorite album of theirs is Love Over Gold. That only has like 5 songs on it, and I think that's a great album.
See,
I really like that one.
I don't get it. I think they was perfect on that first record. Now,
I like them all pretty much equally, and I like them all a lot. But I mean, do you think this happens with these bands sometimes, where like one of the stipulations why you can even get into one of their albums is that you respect the band, you respect them as a unit and as a philosophy, and you almost want to like the band more, and that at least allows you to like one of their albums, kind of thing.
I guess I'd like Communicate second because it was still that original band.
Mm-hmm.
I think when David Knopfler left, and I don't know, maybe it lost a little bit. Not that he was a major player, but I like that guitar interplay that he and his brother had.
Yeah.
And I just like that.
All right.
The other
Got a
one I'm
second
going to
one?
go. Yeah, I've got a second one, and I've tried, and I've got all these CDs, and I picked them up and I listened to them, but none of these compare to their final record. And I think this band was working towards this. And in fact, after the band broke up, this artist did several solo albums that looked like it just continued on from this record. And this record, I think, is absolutely brilliant. I've seen some ranking videos where people don't think this is as brilliant as they rank it. I'm going to go with Roxy Music Avalon. I think that record is a commercial. I don't know. I think it's very sophisticated. A lot of keyboards, soulful. Avalon was the biggest hit. I think it's their masterpiece. Some people like the earlier Eno stuff. I can't get into that stuff for some reason. I think Avalon's just a perfect record for that.
Yeah.
To end on that note, oh, that's just me.
Oh, I like Avalon quite a bit. I also really like the first album, and I'd say those two are the ones that I go to the most. But I think Avalon's great, and more than this, I think that's one of their best songs,
I just can't do it. I've tried.
Yeah.
The other one is that, all right, we're going to talk, this album was produced by Mick Ronson back in the day, and I think Mick knew exactly what to do with this artist. I'm talking Morrissey, and I'm a big Smiths fan. I think the Smiths, all that catalog, there's nothing weak in the Smiths. And I think it was the combination of Johnny Marr and Morrissey in the songwriting department that really made a difference. And I think the closest thing that even comes close to that is Your Arsenal by Morrissey when Mick Ronson was producing it. I think Your Arsenal's a great record. It's kind of like where probably the last Smiths album left off, because I still think, I think Morrissey should go out and sound like Morrissey, and he can't help that. But I think as far as songwriting, production, it's really the only solo Morrissey record that I ever pull out to listen to. Now, I love all the Smith stuff. I don't think there's anything weak in there, but Morrissey's catalog, his solo catalog's a little bit different. It's a different animal. But I think Your Arsenal, I think that's and
interesting.
I tried to listen to the other ones.
Yeah.
Just doesn't do it. So I think Morrissey, regardless of his political leanings or whatever, I don't care about that. As an artist and a vocalist and what he's contributed to, brilliant. He and Johnny Marr, absolutely brilliant.
Cool. All right. So I've got 4 here. And again, I don't know quite what to say on this topic. It's just such a strange topic, but and each one of these is like, I guess the theme here is that, as I've kind of been alluding to, it's like I respect these bands. I want to love them more. And because I want to love these bands and I want to try harder to get into them, that allows me to have the one album that's the gateway. But it's like with these bands that you only like one album of, you go to visit the band and then you find yourself weirdly by habit going back to the same album all the time. And I think that might be part of it as well, right? And then it's a feedback loop. It's a catch-22 where familiarity makes you like the album more, and then you play it more, and then you get more familiar, and then you play it more and you get more familiar. And then all of a sudden that is your one album by this band that you know up and down and you love because of the familiarity. It's something like that applies to these, but each one is a little bit different. So my first one is Jerry Garcia Band, Cats Under the Stars. So this record, to me, everything else he did, he's just like too many covers, too much jammingness, long songs, live and studio mixed together, all over the years. Something about this album, I put this up there with my 2 favorite Grateful Dead albums, which coincidentally are the same time period, Terrapin Station and Shakedown Street, and they're both Keith and Donna albums, which is what this is as well. And the two mellow, almost vocalist songs on here, Down Home and Palm Sunday, are just two of my favorite quiet music songs ever written by all time by anybody. And then things like Reuben and Charisse and Cats Under the Stars are just perfect Shakedown Street, Terrapin Station type Grateful Dead. So this is kind of a little bit different than what I just said. It has nothing to do with the familiarity. It's just literally, I guess it's possibly a boring answer, but I don't feel like any of the rest of this catalog feels like Donna and Keith era Grateful Dead, which is the Grateful Dead I love the most. So that's my first one. My second one, okay, let's go with this one. I'll leave the most extreme one for last. So this is another band I want to love way more than I do, Mudhoney. I saw them live on this EP. I consider this an album because it's a long EP. I literally consider this my favorite grunge document of all time. I always put this up with Nirvana Bleach and with Green River Rehab Doll, but I think this is the best of all of them. But it's so strange that after this happened and I saw them live, and it's the most galvanizing, crazy, heavy live grunge experience, right? Early days, 88. I get to the second album and all of a sudden I find myself losing interest. It's getting a little bit too 60s. The power is missing from it. Maybe it's because there's less grooves on it, or the grooves are tighter because it's a full-length LP. It doesn't sound as powerful. And then the whole rest of the catalog, it just feels like it's sitting there for me to just discover on a retirement complete Mudhoney month or something, right? I love the guys to death. I love the idea of Mudhoney. But to me, it's all about that first EP, which is just really weird, right?
It's a brilliant, Martin. That EP, it's hard to compete with that.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
Okay, so now I'm going to go with a bizarre choice, and then I'm going to leave the most intense one for last. My next choice is the Beatles. So the Beatles White Album, this is the first Beatles album I ever heard. I had my first girlfriend, 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old. Her parents had this, and we played this album all the time, right? On the, on the amazing stereo. So this is one of the first rock albums that I kind of knew, right? But also the mystique of the double album, the great recording, the fact that it's mature period Beatles. So my point with this is, it's not the only Beatles album I like, right? It breaks the rule a little bit, but I got to tell you, this is an album I've played 500 times, say. Every other Beatles album, probably under 50 times for all of them, right? 40, 30, some of them maybe even less than 3 times completely through, right? I'm just not a big Beatles person, but I gotta own this album. It just feels like a complete masterpiece. It's a little bit like the Led Zeppelin thing, where I could go to Physical Graffiti and I wouldn't be out of control. Look at that. That's weird. How do you have that handy too?
I'm just ready for you, Martin.
Yeah. But it's a little bit like Physical Graffiti, where another thing that happens with one of these bands where it's the only album I ever like, or it's the one album I like by the band, quote unquote. I could literally make my Beatles, top songs list, and they'd all be off of here first, right? All these songs, just like Physical Graffiti, would all come up. There you go. Okay, so my last choice is the most intense one and the most bizarre one to me. It's the Chameleons UK and Strange Times. Now, this absolutely is, I'm on record, probably in the back of some of my books or whatever, but I'm on record of having this in my top 10 or 15 albums of all time by anybody, right? I love the whole idea of the band. I love everything else. Well, I don't love everything else they've done, but I don't understand why, right? Because things like this, what does anything mean, basically, and Script of the Bridge, right? I think that's the title. See, I don't even know if I got the title right. People say that the 2 albums before this album are even better, right? And I go back to them and I play them, and it's the same kind of music, but for some reason, Strange Times. So forget my Beatles example. So this I've played over 1,000 times, right? And these other albums, it's like I just keep wanting to get into them because I need some more Chameleons in my life. I just love these guys to death. Even the reunion era stuff is really, really cool, right? But do I have any interest in it? So when I'm in a Chameleons mood, I reach and I go, gotta play one of these ones that I know is gonna be one of my favorite albums for the rest of my life. And then I go to Strange Times again, right? Every single time, right? So it's habitually going back to that same absolute drop dead masterpiece. You know, I'm pretty sure it's a better recorded album than the other ones and maybe tighter and just more high fidelity, because that's the one thing I notice when I go back to them. So anytime anybody brings up this question, that the Beatles, I had to dig a little bit to think of Mudhoney and to think of the Jerry Garcia band, but the two examples I always think of are the Beatles and the Chameleons UK. It always falls into that for me. So that is my 4. So I don't know. Anybody else got any comments?
I don't know, but that Chameleons record
Well,
is a
you know,
perfect
I have something that may be the opposite, but an album that I've always wanted to like by a group that I absolutely love and can never get into, Dehumanizer by Black Sabbath. That's one
That's a great choice, Rich. And you know what? You should save that because that should be the follow-up show to this, the opposite show, right?
The opposite. Yeah.
That's a great idea because you're right.
It's one of those albums that every time I play it, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like it this time, and I lose interest. You know, I mean, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's just Dio. Maybe it's just the sound is just too unpleasant, and I don't like hearing Dio sing that way. It's just there's nothing. I go away with it and I can't remember what I've heard. You know, it's like.
Yeah, I know, Rich. And, you know, I recently did a History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff episode that had kind of a weird title that doesn't really lay out the point, but it's albums that don't deserve the love. And that was the first one I thought of right away, right?
Oh, cool.
And really the point of the episode was bands or albums that just everything on paper is perfect. The story, the narrative is perfect. Then you go play it and you're totally invested and you go, I'm really not enjoying myself with this record, right? So that's interesting. So that is the opposite show, and I think we should do that one.
Yeah,
it would be cool. Yeah,
I would have other choices too, but that would definitely be my top one.
I could think of some as well. Yeah.
You know, I just looked up the Chameleons catalog, just basic reviews. You know, all their stuff pretty much gets really great reviews.
I bet.
What Does Anything Mean basically gets like a 5-star rating.
Yeah.
But it must, I don't know. Was Strange Times, is that the record you got turned on to originally? Is that what
it would have been the first one, and it was 86. And I was in my college rock years as well. It's just so dark and interesting and textured and well recorded and really haunting, right? And kind of a heavy, but not really written heavy or played heavy, but just kind of heavy of emotion, right? But yeah, you're right. For some reason, all of them are in there, but I just always habitually reach easily over 1,000 times I've played this album. I just love it to death, right? So, all right, well, let's wrap it up. Thanks for that, guys. That's pretty cool. It's like I say, it's a weird topic because you wonder why or how does this happen, right? With these bands. And I left out one, a very quick one. Yeah, I had a last one. I didn't have a physical of it. I'll just be quick with this. Talking Heads is a perfect example for me. Little Creatures. This Elder, you know, when we were talking about being swept up into the excitement of a band. So when Talking Heads was really big and accessible on the radio, I was swept up. So the point is, this is a band I've always respected and thought I'm supposed to love. The critics tell me I'm supposed to love them. I keep trying. I keep playing the stuff. And there's like the boringness and the African rhythms and the electronics and the dissonance, like not great melodies and things. But then when it all came together, it's like, okay, they did an album that is putting aside the things I don't like about them, but I love the idea of this band. So I'm receptive. I'm ready. So I was loving Little Creatures to death. Every song on it, played it. Again, this is one of these where I probably played this a couple hundred times and everything else is like 10 or 20 times sort of.
Yeah.
That was my last one.
Yeah, because Little Creatures is kind of much more commercial, and they get rid of all that
Yeah.
experimental stuff, and it's just a good pop record. There's great stuff on the
Yeah, cool. All right, guys. Well, thanks again. And yeah, if the topic comes up again, you know, Rich's topic, let's sign up for it. It'd be cool to see you guys again on the opposite show. So that would be very cool. So there you go, everybody. Let us know in your comments what albums for you are absolute drop dead classics, but you just don't get along with the rest of the catalog. It'd be kind of cool to see, and it would be cool to see why or how you think that happens. So yeah, we've got Grant, we've got a Ko-Fi, we've got merch, we've got definitely subscribe. We would love to get over top of the 10,000 subscriber mark. We've been hanging around at 9.52 for a long time. So subscribe. Apparently hitting the like button really helps. I keep forgetting to do that myself, but I try to get in and make sure I hit the like and all that. But yeah, Ko-Fis, all that stuff. So let us know in the comments what you think. And there you go. That is your show for tonight.